The Spotlight brought to you by Beacon Plumbing.
Good evening and welcome to The Spotlight. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Rose, and we begin with a closer look at the moments leading up to that deadly shooting at the Gorge Amphitheater and the lives lost. Jocelyn Ruiz and Brandy Escamilla were newly engaged. They'd been together for a decade. Last weekend, a gunman robbed them of the next chapter in their love story after he opened fire at the concert venue. The Spotlight's Alejandro Guzman reports the man accused of pulling the trigger is a soldier at JBLM who admitted to taking mushrooms before the shooting happened.
That's right. They say his actions were caused by a bad trip after doing shrooms. The documents also say this wasn't his first time. He told investigators he had taken shrooms at least one other time and also had a bad hallucination.
A testament to the love Jocelyn Ruiz and Brandy Escamilla had for one another. Jocelyn proposed back to Brandy last summer after 11 years of dating. This is them celebrating their 9th anniversary together on a ski trip. Memories their families are now clinging to after the high school sweethearts were shot during Saturday's EDM festival Beyond Wonderland at the Gorge.
Why was this person allowed into this venue with a gun?
A question Fox 13 has reached out to Live Nation about, as weapons are clearly prohibited according to the festival's website. Still, Grant County Sheriff's Office says 26-year-old James Kelly carried one in his pickup's console.
Yes, ma'am.
Kelly appearing by a video before a Grant County judge as he's formally charged with 2 counts of murder and 3 counts of assault.
At this time, I am going to order the defendant detained without bail. However, we are noting that there's been no argument. So, sir, at this time, you will not be released.
Court documents now give insight into what happened at the campgrounds that night. Kelly attended with his 20-year-old girlfriend. The docs say the active Army soldier did mushrooms, then walked over to the amphitheater. Statements they both gave say he had a bad trip and started hallucinating. His girlfriend said he made several comments saying this is the end, as he felt the world was ending and needed to rush back to their tent. Once back, he grabbed the gun from his truck. Jocelyn and Brandy were walking through the grounds together, their paths meeting Kelly's. That's when deputies say he shot them multiple times, killing them. Documents say Kelly then started walking the grounds, his girlfriend calling 911, but he yanked the phone from her. Deputies using a drone to get a better look at what was happening. They saw the 20-year-old walking away with her hands raised. It's unknown what was said, but his girlfriend walked back towards him. He fired, the bullet hitting her foot. He fired a second shot, which hit her upper leg. Kelly was shot by a Moses Lake detective who was undercover at the event.
There's no excuse for this, and to me, it makes it more sad that it was a service member.
The Gorge issuing a statement saying in part, quote, "Our thoughts are with the victims, their loved ones, and the entire Beyond Wonderland community. As we move forward, we will continue to partner with local authorities regarding security plans, as we always have." As we mentioned, their next show is scheduled for July 7th. They made it clear there's no changes to their calendar. Fox 13 reached out to JBLM regarding Kelly's arrest. They say they're aware of the allegations against him, and they extend their condolences to everyone affected by this act of violence.
We're also learning about a mass shooting in North Idaho. Court documents reveal a father executed a neighboring family because he was upset the neighbor's 18-year-old son reportedly exposed himself to the suspect's children. The shooting happened Sunday in the small city of Kellogg. It's about 70 miles east of Spokane. When police arrived, documents indicate the suspect voluntarily told them he had snapped and lost it. The suspect's been charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. Prosecutors say they won't seek the death penalty in this case. A 58-year-old man suspected of going on a months-long flashing spree in Everett is now behind bars. On top of driving around and exposing himself, police say this suspect touched himself inappropriately as he watched women from inside his car. The Spotlight's Nia Wong shares more on who he is and how he was caught.
Everett police tell me their anti-crime team arrested James Swan, and after his first court appearance, we learned he was already a convicted felon who now sits behind bars of the Snohomish County Jail for misdemeanors. Fox 13 was able to speak to a family who believes they were victimized by him.
James Swan pleaded not guilty to all 6 counts he was booked for on Thursday. 5 of them were for indecent exposure and 1 for stalking a minor.
She's sad that people my age, like 15-year-olds,
that he maybe like traumatized them too and showing them things that they wouldn't have to see.
Wishing to keep their identities hidden, the daughter says back in May, she remembers her mother picking her up from school to grab a snack when a man drove too close to their car, exposing himself.
She looked over and it was that guy, and he was doing things that she got afraid.
They believe it was Swan after reading this Facebook post by the Everett Police Department. In it, Everett police say they, along with Everett Park Rangers, received multiple reports over a span of 8 months that a man was using at least 2 different vehicles to expose himself to women in several parts of Everett. They say one of their tech-savvy officers used social media to convince him to meet them, and that Swan showed up in a car that matched descriptions made by victims.
Honestly, scared what's going on with the world because everyone has changed by the years.
Swan's court appearance on Friday revealed his prior felony convictions for robbery, while the judge says she took into consideration these counts happened more than 20, even 30 years ago.
The court's biggest concern are the allegations here. I understand they're just allegations, but I found probable cause to support them, and I'm extremely concerned about these allegations.
Now Swan's bail has been set at $14,000, and he's been ordered to stay away from the victims, which included a minor.
That was Nia Wong reporting. Swan's next hearing is scheduled for July 3rd. Now to a developing story in Bellevue. Investigators believe 2 teens overdosed after they used a vape pen that may have been contaminated with fentanyl. We know one of those teens regained consciousness. The other is fighting for his life in the ICU at Seattle Children's Hospital. Bellevue police say it happened Tuesday morning at around 8:30 at one of the teens' homes. The 2 were given Narcan, and Bellevue school district officials put out an email warning parents to talk to your kids about this deadly situation.
We're not immune to this kind of thing, and we're seeing it more and more in the schools or among young people.
According to the DEA, this is something that's been on the rise for several years now. It's especially concerning knowing that about 10% of middle and high school students have claimed they use vape pens. Past drug crimes wiped off the books due to a change in the drug possession law in Washington state after the original RCW was found to be unconstitutionally vague. Next month, the all-new Blake Refund Bureau website will launch. And Spotlight's Matthew Smith has been digging into the numbers on how many people are being resentenced and the latest on efforts to put money back into the pockets of those with past drug convictions.
There wasn't a blueprint for it.
Judge Laura Raquelme says the Blake decision would impact more people than any court or group could have imagined. Back in 2021, they didn't even have estimates.
Resentencing was identified as being the most urgent of all of the topics because we knew that there were people who were actively serving sentences in jails or prison on these charges, and that we were going to need to address that.
By the Department of Corrections count, 1,336 people were released immediately within 90 days of the changes in 2021. Interestingly, there's groups still eligible for their sentences to be tossed, including 410 people that cut off contact with CCOs, meaning they've now got a warrant, but they're technically eligible for these convictions to be vacated. There's some behind bars that could still go through resentencing too. They would get a lesser sentence. What's known as the Blake Triage Team has estimated that fewer than 1,000 people could still benefit, meaning they could get a shorter sentence, though the number is a bit harder to pin down given a number of factors in this, including criminal history.
It's estimated that there's about 300,000 Blake-related convictions.
And as Robin Zimmerman, the senior communications officer with the Administrative Office of Courts, explains, there's still the issue of refunds. Bottom line, on top of the resentencing efforts over the past 2 years, there's been roughly $8 million refunded to individuals, and tens of millions more are set to be returned when the Bureau launches a new website next month.
We have a non-unified court system, which means we have 39 counties and 39 different systems. And so if we're going to tackle this from a statewide approach, the only way to really go about doing that is to centralize it. And the Administrative Office of the Courts is the centralized agency for the court system in Washington state.
Matt tells us an estimated 200,000 people are eligible to have their old drug convictions tossed out and are likely eligible for those refunds. Still to come, $800,000 down the drain. We find out how a local man was scammed so completely he doesn't know where he's going to live. We're taking a closer look at some hateful messages spread in the North Sound around the Juneteenth slavery emancipation holiday. The Spotlight has learned the flyers with a link to a 20-plus minute documentary on racist conspiracy theories were spread in Snohomish. The Anti-Defamation League says they were also spread in other North Sound communities as well. According to the ADL, the messaging is known as the Great Replacement Theory, and it's used to drive people to violent acts. More than $1 million worth of stolen merchandise, ranging from laundry detergent to power tools, is out of the hands of a suspected thief. Renton police say they served a search warrant at a home in Federal Way, and that's when they found this huge haul. Here's a look at some of it. Turns out Renton police had been working on this case and figured out the suspect has been selling hundreds of thousands of these stolen items on eBay. And they think he was getting all of this stuff from several people who were shoplifting. They've even found packages ready to be sent out in the mail to unsuspecting buyers all across the country. A King County man went from having $800,000 in his bank account to being homeless in just a few days. Investigators say it's all because of scammers. The Spotlight's AJ Danabel is talking with that victim, as well as the FBI, about this scam to help you keep you and your loved ones from becoming victim to these criminals.
This hotel room is now all Bogdan Nalivaiko has, and he doesn't know how long this will last.
Yeah, I feel bad. Feel bad, really bad.
Just a few weeks ago, Bogdan sold his 2,300 square foot home in Snoqualmie, the place he lived for more than a decade. He planned to move south to Auburn and live comfortably with the earnings, but that would not happen.
On April 25th, he sold his house. On the 26th, he had $800,000, and then by May 3rd, he had zero.
Julia Elders is Bogdan's daughter. She lives hundreds of miles away in Minnesota. She didn't find out what happened to her dad until he was about to be homeless.
I collapsed because I cannot imagine in such a short amount of time to lose everything you ever had.
Julia tells me scammers targeted her vulnerable 76-year-old father, claiming he had won $17 million in a sweepstakes, but asking for him to pay the taxes on the earnings first.
I mean, they got what they wanted, and they wanted everything, and they got it.
Julia tells me her father was able to take and transfer tens of thousands of dollars at a time from both Chase Bank and Bank of America to pay out the scammers.
They should have flagged this.
Any idea?
And then they said, you know, once I called them, they were like, we did everything we could. I'm like, how?
I think banks are in the same position as us, where they would like to prevent this before it even happens. But the skill set of organized criminal groups does sometimes cause them to be fooled, just like the victims in the cases.
Kelly Smith is the assistant special agent in charge with the Seattle FBI. He says victims can feel embarrassed. He tells me the best thing you can do is report scams as quickly as possible and always reach out to friends and family if something seems questionable. Despite taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from Bogdan, the scammers continue to target him non-stop.
No, I am not talking right now. I'm ignored.
And she's in the office on Tuesday?
Luckily, there is some good. Joe Kenny, who owns a moving company and met Bogdan when he had to leave his home, has been working with Julia, helping her father with documents, paperwork, and trying to get him somewhere more stable.
Better in a house than in a hotel, yes. House is everything. House is life.
Snoqualmie police tell AJ they forwarded the case to the FBI. We also reached out to Chase Bank and Bank of America. They tell us they'll work to get more information on the case. Meanwhile, Julia is working to raise money for her dad through a GoFundMe. If you'd like to help him, we put the link on our website. Look for this story on fox13seattle.com. 4 people in New York City are dead after a fire from an e-bike shop spread to their upper floor apartments. The deadly fire happened overnight Tuesday morning. Now, this comes as firefighters across the nation spent this week raising awareness on lithium-ion batteries and the potential risk of starting fires. Those batteries are in the devices we use every day, from small devices like cell phones and tablets to larger ones like electric bikes and scooters and appliances. Without proper care and adequate charging equipment, these devices can combust. Almost 2,700 people in the U.S. have been killed in a house fire over the past 5 years. Those residential blazes also account for almost $7 billion in losses. Local firefighters are urging all of us to have an escape plan. In a story you'll see only on the Spotlight, Frankie Thompson shows us the lessons learned from one woman who lost her home to a fire.
No one was hurt during this recent house fire in Tacoma, but Pierce County fire marshals say the damage shows how toxic smoke and flammable gas can quickly fill the house. With the homeowner's permission, the investigators are using this incident as an educational opportunity on house fire safety.
When a Tacoma homeowner walked out her door the morning of June 5th, this was the last thing she expected to return to.
A small fire can cause so much devastation in the home.
The damage, there's a lot more damage to the top.
Pierce County Deputy Fire Marshal Cody Jenkins investigated this house fire. He says it started in the kitchen, sparked by items that were on the stove.
Including some work bags, has a tablet, some paper, some toiletry bags. She got ready to go to work, grabbed a couple things, and left the house. Approximately 4 or 5 minutes later, she got a call from her security system that her smoke alarm had been activated, and asking if she wanted to send the fire department out.
By the time firefighters arrived, only the stove was up in flames. A relatively small fire, but with a destructive impact.
And all the damage in the rest of the house is soot and smoke.
Without the one working smoke detector in the house, investigators say the fire and toxic fumes would have spread, except one room would have had a fighting chance.
This whole area is full of soot deposits and smoke. This door was shut at the time of the fire. We just have a little bit of smoke staining across the top. And then as we come inside, it's like this is not even part of the same house.
Deputy Fire Marshal Peter Worley says this shows how a closed door to every room, even while sleeping, can help preserve the space and save lives.
Something simple as a closed hollow core construction grade door will make this area behind the shut door a completely livable space when everything on the other side of the door is not.
Though the owner was not home during the fire, some people are. It's why fire marshals say homes need more smoke detectors installed.
We recommend a smoke alarm in each bedroom, a smoke alarm in the hallway outside of sleeping spaces, and then also an additional smoke alarm on every level of the home.
Should the alarm go off, fire marshals say staying low is the safest way to escape.
The fire builds, all the hot heat gases go up, set the smoke alarm off, but our most breathable air and our lower temperatures are against the floor. We want to get low on the ground and crawl as fast as we can out of the building, and then make sure to shut the doors behind us.
Pierce County Fire Marshal Ken Rice says flames double in size every 30 seconds. Reasons why people need to know how to get to safety fast.
It doesn't take an extremely large fire to fill your house with poisonous and flammable gas. So you only have a very short window to be able to get out of the house. Have an escape plan and practice it. You can have the greatest plan in the world, but if you've never executed that plan, so what we'll tell people with families is, hey, maybe at 2 or 3 in the morning, activate the smoke detectors, push the button, see how your family responds.
Fire marshals encourage people to practice that escape plan routinely at least every quarter of the year. And they urge people to never go back inside a burning building because reopening doors and windows will create ventilation that will fuel that fire.
Just ahead,
it's not worth, going to jail over someone cutting in front of you.
A common frustration while waiting to catch a ferry. How authorities are trying to deal with the problem of line cutters who are causing road rage. A kitten in Auburn almost spent one of its 9 lives after it got stuck in the door of a pickup. Take a look. This happened Wednesday afternoon at the Leah Hill neighborhood. Valley firefighters say the hinge was pushing on the kitten's neck, so they carefully removed the door by unbolting it so they could free the animal. The kitten's okay and is being taken care of by the truck owner, who has named that kitten Stucky after what happened. People are cutting in line at Washington ferry terminals, and the rule-following drivers are not happy. The Washington State Patrol tells Fox 13 people are getting so upset, Edmonds police are arresting them for getting violent. Before the problem gets any worse, Edmonds police, the State Patrol, and state ferries are teaming up to crack down on the line cutters. We get more from the Spotlight's Nikki Torres.
It almost sounds silly saying it out loud. Getting arrested, going to jail, all because someone cut you in line. But it's happened, and it continues to occur at the Edmonds Ferry Terminal.
Edmonds seems to be getting the most complaints for line cutting, and in the past 2 months, they've just had more and more complaints and escalations that turn into road rage incidents, and arrests are being made.
For that reason, WSP, Edmonds Police, and state ferries are teaming up to catch line cutters.
With the upcoming months and the fact that more people are going to be traveling by ferry and the lines are going to get longer and wait times are going to get longer, we don't want to see an increase in these calls and the situations where people are getting violent.
If you've ever taken a ferry out of Edmonds to get to Kingston, you know what it's like to be in this line. During peak hours, you'll sit here idling in your car for hours. Regular ferry commuters like Deanne have seen the line violators up close.
And you said you have been cut in line here?
Absolutely, yes.
How many times would you say?
To my husband and I, probably, like once a week.
In Edmonds, you will notice these signs. They're blocking the roadway, and they're here because there are intersections with access points to the ferry line.
And people have kind of stopped and they hesitate. People will cut in there.
Cutting in through here, you cheat dozens of cars out of a spot.
It's frustrating because most of us are just waiting impatiently, and because of the way the world is, nobody's going to say anything to the people cutting in, at least not to the person. If you have any altercations, then you're kind of risking your own self doing that. So when you get up to the traffic booth, you say something and they do what they can to try to call up ahead and get the people out of the line.
We asked Deanne if she's ever seen anyone get violent during her commute, and she said no. However, she has seen drivers yelling at each other in frustration. Other drivers, however, they have taken their anger to the next level, which is why troopers and police will be watching this area closely.
It's not worth, going to jail over someone cutting in front of you.
That was Nikki Torres reporting. Keep in mind, cutting in line at the ferry terminal is an infraction. The fine is $139. So if you see someone cutting in line, police say write down their card description with a plate number if you can, and give that information to the ferry workers at the till. They'll handle it, maybe send that person back to the front of the line, and they'll get that big ticket. Well, that's all the time we have on this edition of The Spotlight. Until next time, be smart and stay safe.